Good morning, dear students, and welcome to Moodle platform. Today's lesson is about news values. But before we start with the news values, we have first to see what is the meaning of the word news, or what do we mean by news. News is something important in our daily lives and is everywhere, in the workplace, in the family, and so on. We can have access to the news by reading newspapers, watching TV, surfing the net, following the different platforms of social media, and so on. Sorry. Let's start first with the definition of news. News, in simple words, is something new or unusual happening, or it can be generally defined as the important information that the receiver did not know before it was presented. Or news is something relevant and important, immediate to the receiver. So, what is important in this lesson is what we call news values or news worthiness. News values or newsworthiness is what makes events to be considered as news. News values, then, they are the different characteristics of news, or they are those qualities which influence our selection to to events to be considered as news. So this is as far as news values are concerned. Now you see that these news values, in fact, it is a word used by news organization themselves. For example, if you check BBC, for example, you can see at the you can see the motto there. It is our values. I mean, it is each news organization has its own value criteria. Now it is, I mean, the classification or the different selections of news. The classification is a general one, or a classical one if you want, because this is the one you find everywhere, for example, in books, on the net, and so on. This general classification has 10 basic elements. For example, timeliness. They say that they mean by timeliness that those events which are up to date and so on, they are news worthiness. They mention again the word or the element importance. I mean, the news which deserve to be considered, or the events which deserve to be considered as news, should be important or bring something important to the receiver, and so on. This is as far as the first classification is. The second classification is that of Gatlin and Rag, which this classification goes back to 1965. It has other taxonomy. Notice please, here you have the names given change, but the meaning is almost the same. You can find the meaning of these elements the same, whether with Gatlin or with for example, McChain or Hardcap, and so on. So Gatlin and Reg's classification, as I previously mentioned, in 1965, they have other elements, or yes, taxonomy, which is frequency, threshold, and ambiguity. For example, they say that an event, in order to be considered as news, it should not be, ambiguous, okay, and it should be meaningful, and so on. The meaning, sorry, the third classification goes back to 1979, is the classification of McChain. McChain's classification is has just some elements if we compare it to the two previous ones. I mean that of Gatlin and the classical classification. So then, McChain's classification, for example, is with conflict, hardship, unusualness, scandal, individualism, and so on. We take, for example, the word or the element hardship and danger to the community. According to McChain's classification, an event needs to be, needs to be near to the community, or um, it speaks or it deals with the event which is related to that community, or for example in case of danger, for example when there is floods, fires, hurricanes, and so on. These phenomenons, natural phenomenons, present danger to the community, so they deserve to be reported in use. The other definition we have here is that of hard cap and on-nail. This classification, in fact, was a criticism to Gatlin and Darag's taxonomy. Hadcap and O'Neill tried to criticize the taxonomy presented by Gatlin and Rag in 1965. So they suggested their, own taxonomy, which is important to be considered when we want to, to give an event this importance and report it as news. They give, for example, good news. They think that good news or bad news as well deserve to be reported as news because they are they are important to the receiver. They mention as another taxonomy or as another element celebrity. They say that, for example, celebrities, public figures or our outstanding people need or deserve to be mentioned or to be reported, in news, because they can interest the the whole community, especially for example the case of players, singers, actors, and so on. This is Hardcap and O'Neill's classification. Please notice that here I have just a kind of summary to these different classifications. But if you want more details, you can go back to the lecture. I have explained in details these different taxonomies. Then we move to the last one, and it is that of Bidmark and Capel. This classification is relatively a new one. It goes back to the 2017. 2017. They have other taxonomy, but other taxonomy if you consider the names given, but the meaning you can find that it is always the same as I already mentioned. So they mention, for example, um, timeliness as it is with the classical classification. They mention the impact. They mentioned the enlighteners. Elite people, like we mentioned with those people, outstanding people, public figures, players, singers, actors, and so on. They deserve to be reported in use. Here with the Bidmark and Capel, we have the almost the same idea. And I can say that what we have as researchers on use values is something vast and diverse, because of the importance of news values in to journalists or to communication students or researchers in general. Those news values help, in fact, editors and journalists to determine or to precise whether the information or the event in general uh, is newsworthy or needs or deserves or must be covered as a news story. Then, what I want to tell you at the end of this draw your attention to something important, which is the references or the sources suggested at the end. You are given a list of biography. You can check this bibliography if you wish to have more details. And I hope this lesson is clear enough to you. So thank you for your attention. See you next session, inshallah.